Oh, shit. I did it again. Sorry, guys, the sound. Oh, don't worry. I'll get the hang of this sooner or later. Let me repeat that. uh, I was answering a question that Scott from the last stream asked. And because there's a delay between what I read and in terms of the time difference between the streams, and it's because I try to upload it and get it streaming in good quality. So then when it's placed on YouTube, it's as high as I can get it. Otherwise, the video quality is going to be worse if I lower the delay, just so I can read you in real time. So that's what happened last time. As I said goodbye, Scott threw in a question in terms of a super chat, which I'll answer. He said, in your opinion, as a laid off worker welder, would you take this downtime to get another trade or take a low level job and ride it out? It depends on your age, but I'm assuming if you're young, do whatever you want, but do it sensibly, as long as you're not homeless and you've got food and you've got a stable life. But if you've got a family, responsibilities, things like that, you need to be sensible about things. But if you're free, and if you're in the manosphere and you're kind of looking for direction, then you really don't have responsibilities and you can do whatever you want. If it's only fear speaking and you kind of know that you don't like the profession you're currently in, the life you're currently in, and if you pick another direction, there's nothing structurally and practically really you need to be fearful of other than fear itself. I would say do it because you've already posed the question whether you would suggest taking another trade or writing it out. You're already wanting or questioning whether you should go in another direction. I would say if you don't have responsibilities and you can do it. Yeah, sorry guys about the microphone being switched off. I muted it initially as the intro screen rotates, just so you can't see me, so you can't hear me rustling around in the background as I'm getting ready. So I forgot to unmute. Apologies. So start throwing your questions at me. Yeah, exactly, Lestat. I got pissed off after I said everything and I had to repeat myself. But I did it. I had one take, and the second time I repeated myself, the benefit was I actually was more concise. I didn't waffle as much. But unfortunately, I was waffling too long without any sound, and you guys had to suffer. Sorry. Okay, have you been getting more women viewers? What do you think of Replicant Fish making his channel more gender inclusive? I don't know about Replicant Fish. I haven't really had an increase in female viewership. I think there's only, I can count on one hand, the women that I see as regulars. One or two kind of frequent my older, more blunt videos, especially the one about the expired lottery ticket. There's a couple of women that still sort of troll in there, and the good thing is, guys that appreciate my channel for the perspective I take, they heeded my suggestion by not feeding the trolls, the women that go in there and just try and you know, act the way they act. Don't feed them and they'll go away, and they do. But that's what I would suggest. Any kind of trolls in the comment section, do not respond. Women kind of leave if you ignore them. They don't like being invisible. They're the only regulars that I wish weren't there. But it's not that I talk about men, my perspective as a guy, from a male's perspective, but I'm not trying to get females. But I've no problem with civil females coming in and just being normal, respectful human beings. But I do my stuff for guys from a guy's point of view. Stardust has pointed out that there aren't as many romantic comedies anymore. What do you make of this? Is it the illusion so shattered they don't bother to perpetuate it anymore? Yeah, I think, I don't know, maybe it's just the demographic, time and place, but there's a few things I think, because comedic dramas, Everybody Loves Raymond and things like that, where you had the typical idiot husband and the brilliant wife that rolls her eyes. It requires writing and more production. Now they generally have reality TV that doesn't require much writing. So they're saving more money, and it's more of a social media TV. Everything tends to be social media. So actual stories, they're not making them anymore. And in terms of television, where these comedies resided back in the day, where the husband and father and the male was an idiot, and the wife was a card carrying Mensa person, they don't exist. I think mainly because they're more expensive to make. Women have changed now. They believe their own hype, and thereafter, the stuff thereafter. I mean, they watch reality TV more. They're more curious about other people's lives, rather than any kind of meaning or story structure. So they like getting titillated by drama. And did you hear what she said? Oh, did you hear what happened between Joe and Emma and things like that? So different time, costs more, and they calibrate all the entertainment around social media, because it's quick, little planning. You just literally, you can turn a camera on and create an environment where the rats need to go through a maze, and you just film them doing so. And in post-production, or the minimum amount you require is to just edit out swearing and profanity and things like that, and make it politically correct, and you've got a show. How relevant are zoning laws in Australia? No idea. Sorry. I don't know anything about that. I'm glad you didn't super chat that question. Jeez. I'm in my mid 40s. Should I continue my education and get my bachelor's in IT from an accredited online school? Mid 40s. Similar to the question I answered right at the start. If you know that if you do it, you're not going to sacrifice your Maslow's low level hierarchy, whereas, your shelter, food, things you're responsible for, or people you're responsible for, do it. If it's calling you, if you have to ask the question, it's on your mind. And if you really don't like what you're doing at the moment, if it's drudgery, and if you have the freedom to do so, I would say, why not? Again, I'm not telling you what to do, but why not? Sometimes the only thing that's stopping you is the fear of getting out of your routine. If you could create a physical male only space, would it be a bar, a health club, a shooting range, or some combination of the above? Any of those, I suppose, if you wanted to create a male only space. I mean, I do it every time when I call a friend over and we, watch a video and have a pizza and just hang out. A friend of mine, we're going for a hike next week, and just talking, hanging out as guys and going for like a 2 or 3 hour hike. And rather than talking on the phone, because of the restrictions right now, only 2 people at a time are allowed to hang out. And if I can only choose one person, I'd choose a male. What do Australians think of American bourbon? I think Australians like bourbon full stop, regardless of where it's made. But I'd imagine they like it. I think you should ask Coltane about bourbon. I'm guessing he's a bourbon drinker. I have a friend who went to jail due to a false accusation. He's still blue pilled. I used to try to talk to him about the red pill, but it's hopeless. My question is, why are some men still like that? I don't know, man, but like that's an example of an extreme. Like there's no, you cannot, people are wired sometimes in a way that, it's like an American plug not fitting into an Australian socket. It's like you can try and try, it just won't go. Don't try. Don't try. You're wasting your energy. Use your fuel for someone else or yourself or something else. What happened to our possessions when we reach our old age as men going their own way? Who cares? I don't know. I'm not being glib, but when I'm God, when I'm gone, I don't think I'll really care what happens to my stuff or what I'll leave behind. People think that they'll be kind of ghosts hovering and observing all the time, forever, but I don't know. I'm skeptical, very skeptical. I.e., I don't think so. For men that feel a need to have something or contribute something outside themselves, what opportunities or avenues do you see available for men who walk away from traditional domestic roles? What opportunities or avenues do I see available for men who walk away from traditional roles? This is the thing. If you're anchored, you're built the way that you really just can't deny that you want a family, who am I to tell you and shame you out of it? All I can say is do it with your eyes open as much as possible. Think twice. Do it in the safest way possible, as in, and before you guys say there's no safe way, I mean, if nothing can stop you from wanting children and getting married and doing those things, do it as sensibly and safely as possible for your own peace of mind. So if the inevitable might happen in the future, you can say, in today's environment, I did it the safest way I could. For instance, you date a woman for years before you even entertain the possibility of moving in together. And I'm talking like 3 to 4, 5 years. Get her to invest in you. And during that time, because women don't like wasting time, during that time, if you see she's consistent, she doesn't change, you've gone on multiple holidays for months on end during those first 3 to 5 years, you actually yourself, through no shadow of a doubt, you realize you can trust her in that way because you've been away with her, you've kind of lived in other parts of the world where you've had to rely on each other, and you make the suggestion to want to because you trust her enough after 5 years. Then after you move in together, then maybe another couple of years, basically kind of she's proving to you, like, not that she's a Nawalt, but as much as any woman can, that she's invested enough time in you because they don't like wasting time, that if you nothing can stop you getting married, that kind of way is about the best thing. And then, time after that, then you can decide if you want to get married and then have kids. So basically, you're doing it as sensibly as possible. That's what I would suggest if nothing can stop you. Spetsnaz, hey man, how you going? Can you talk on men rewriting rewriting their philosophy and being stuck in a past script that doesn't work? Oh, I was talking to Spetsnaz about this the other day. Yeah, I don't really think men can really go their own way until they rewrite their past philosophy, because a lot of it is actually given to you without you knowing it. Because your parents, say you had a good family upbringing, you respect and love your parents, they gave you a philosophy ready-made. And if you love and respect them, you tend to just kind of pantomime it and go on, and it works for you because your parents and family and friends are all there to support you and they're simpatico with you and your life is great. So why wouldn't you continue this mindset? It's only later on when you leave the nest of home, you move in on your own, you move in with some, roommates or somewhere else. I noticed with myself when I moved in on my own, and basically it was now me creating my own life, when I was trying to use the support structure of my family's philosophy, which worked because I could rely and lean on them. I had no one else to rely on but my own empirical, practical philosophy that needed to sort of be enacted in life and tested. It didn't work. The women I started to meet in my life when I was single, moved out of home, they weren't like my mother and my sister. They didn't hold the same values. They didn't respect me. They didn't believe, and they weren't by default like me, plugging into the separate male female roles. So I really think to go your own way, you need to consciously be interested enough in rewriting the old philosophy, and it's never more pertinent than when you move out on your own. And hopefully you do that before. See, this is the danger. Guys go from moving out from home to blindly getting married or moving in with a woman, and they've got no time to write their own philosophy. I think it's vitally important. Any knowledge of men with solid prenuptial agreements who have a vasectomy? Oh, that's very specific. Well, I suppose if you have a vasectomy, you'd know you don't want to have children. You know she's not going to actually take things from you to the extent after a divorce that includes children. That's like a massive ongoing cost. She's basically going to take a one-time payment after the divorce. It tends not to be ongoing. I don't think it's very often that there's an alimony in Australia. I know there is in California and other parts of the world. There might be. I'm not sure. I don't know of any solid prenuptials. They always get rewritten. I keep hearing more and more of, yeah, we went to the lawyer together, but what happens is afterwards they can contest it and saying, yeah, when we signed the contract, this was the situation. But you can't expect me to abide by that because our situation has changed now. We need to reevaluate now during separation afterwards because we've created things together. I supported him in his business, etc., etc. So by those grounds, they let me adjust the brightness. By those grounds, they contest it by saying the situation has changed. So I don't pay much stock to prenuptials. But I mean, again, in terms of like making sure you're going to be with the right woman if nothing can stop you getting married, that's another thing you can add before you get married. And if she doesn't blink an eye and says she wants to do all of that and you've trusted her for years, that's just another added brick in your mental security that, yeah, there's nothing, there's nothing I can really point to, and my conscience is telling me I can trust this person, and I've tested her, and I've made her show her loyalty, and I've made her show as best she can as a woman that I can trust her. Because at the end of the day, you need to make the judgment whether you can trust anybody. And it's no good going through life, man or woman, not trusting anybody, not having friends, not having intimate connections. As who said it? I think it was Tolstoy. I think it was Tolstoy that said the only way you can trust somebody is to trust them. Or it could have been Norman Mailer, I'm not sure. But one of those two guys, that's the only real way you can tell. But the best way to know that you can pull the trigger on trying to trust someone is to consciously and practically do everything you can beforehand to know that you trust them. Not kind of go, well, all right, I'll do what they want. It's about time. I hope they don't shaft me. You don't want to do that. Okay. Sorry. All right. Human, have you ever wondered why men's fashion tends to be more uniform, but women's fashion is all over the place? Pretty simply because they can't sit still. They're always moving. A woman's a game of musical chairs. A man just wants to sit down forever. That's a man's security. A woman sort of is hypocritical in her desires, and that's what she's fighting against. She wants security and she wants variety at the same time in tandem. Um, a sensible guy, and I'm talking most guys' minds are calibrated to, when it's time to be sensible, when it's time to be practical, I can't choose two opposing things. I can't choose to move and be still at the same time. Yes, you can sit in a car and do that, but I mean, generally, there's that rationality with men, but women see it as no problem simply because they're not responsible for it. A man can bend over backwards to try and accommodate a woman's stupid whims like that, but because she doesn't have to be responsible, she thinks, well, why isn't he just making it happen? Look, what an idiot. He can't even get that right. He can't get our lives moving and having variety as well as being secure. I want him to be home more, but I want him to make a lot of money. Um, I, I see it all the time whenever I pop into a dating site. Is it doesn't matter what age women are at, they always want two opposing things. You know, I'm the kind of person that I'm outgoing, but I also like staying in. I love traveling, but I'm a homebody. What can I say? Female nature. Yeah, the fact that pay close attention if you meet a woman, especially if you're going to date them or think about dating them. When they say, I get bored easily, that's these kind of women that love shopping and they can't sit still. They're musical chairs. You will never have anything secure and lasting with this person, so best not to fall for this person. Usually they'll say, oh, but not with guys, as though they've listened to themselves. They're saying, oh shit, this guy's not going to stay with me. I'm bored with everything except you. Yeah, of course. Sure. I've begun to notice how women often view men as somewhat incomplete works before women enter their lives. Any truth to this or simply anecdotal? Yeah, Stardust used the analogy of a canvas and women paint on it. But the funny thing is they don't actually see themselves painting on it. They see a man painting himself, but it's got to be in accordance with her ever-changing musical chair imagination. Um, so, yeah, men. I think women see men as raw material for their ever-changing needs. They are like this. If you think like of an equalizer or something that it constantly has buttons all over it, and they just push and it does whatever they want. ASMR, anyone? Okay, keep asking questions, guys. Um, let me read one or two comments from a couple of past videos that I thought were really astute. Um, my older video, the PTSD surfer, where I talked about the ridiculous way they'll shame you, where you might have been like really damaged in divorce and it really scarred you that you have no interest in doing it again, and they'll shame you and saying like, why don't you do it again? And I made the analogy of if a surfer gets mauled by a shark, and you wouldn't shame the surfer for not wanting to surf anymore. It's like, yeah, I like surfing, but not that much. Sorry, once bitten, twice shy, and especially bitten by the shark. And Richie actually made a funny um, comment, which is kind of astute, in line with the surfer shark metaphor, which was surfer gets limb bitten off, shark most affected. It's pretty much it. Um, in terms of just do it, irresponsible adults, nice guy 091 said one of the biggest issues I see is that people have the mentality of I want children rather than I want a family. That's really astute. That's if more guys can actually, if they can calibrate themselves and remind themselves that I don't want a child, I want a family, you'll be able to possibly judge women beforehand whether or not they're family material, not just I want children. You might have a blind spot with a woman because she's just something to give you children, but she can make you have an awful life and you won't get the children in the end. More questions, guys? I'll keep reading the comments out until I see some more questions. Trevor said, men love people and use things. Women love things and use people. Well said. Bobby.N said under my video, you're always in a relationship, where I said, where I contemplated, like, even if you're not with a woman, you might go from that to a relationship of being on your own, but you're still in a relationship up here. And so if you don't talk to yourself well, the relationship you have with that super ego in your head, shaming you, where you feel bad and possibly depressed, you've got to have a good relationship up there with yourself, how you speak to yourself. And he said, if you don't know how to fish and you don't have the desire or capacity to learn how, you're probably best served by sticking with a tin of sardines. This is really true. I was mentioning how not everyone's made for the red pill. So some guys you can't teach how to fish. They're better off just buying a tin of sardines. They're not fishermen. Okay, some more questions. Thanks, David. Maybe it was the delay. What did the ancients understand that we of today don't? A hell of a lot. The importance of history and passing on tradition, for one. They really protected that and passed it on. But when men are in charge, they see the importance, because we need something to rely on, like the experience of people before us, because we're the ones that need to act in the world moving forward. We're the ones responsible. If we're responsible without any kind of rule book, we're just sort of stumbling forward. That's the bad thing that's happening today with guys. Okay, let's see if I missed any. Thoughts on the necessity of confronting abusive parents from childhood. As an adult, it seems cliche to me at this point, and a waste of time if they have personality disorder. Exactly. I think if you're a civil, kind, and respectful person, if the other person won't listen to you, you have to distance yourself. I was talking with a friend last night where he had a lot of troubles like this with his mother. She abandoned him when he was a baby. He reconnected with her because he had that desire, and it's typical. I'm not judging him, it's natural. He wanted to reconnect, and he found in quick succession she wasn't anyone that he recognized, but he had this pull. And she was a toxic person, and he doesn't speak to her anymore. It only took 1 or 2 years of trying when he reconnected. But any person that is a bad influence on you, and especially if you're reflective and you know you've given people second, third chances, you're respectful, you're civil, but they don't let you speak, they dominate you, they shame you, be objective, walk away. You don't need people like that. Okay. Have you ever looked into Helen Fisher's theory? No. Thanks, Alpha Dog. Thanks, 007 Focus. Okay. Now it's just caught up with all the questions. Is the sound coming through okay? I think it is. I changed microphones. Yeah, a few people have actually asked me to do a video about, say, tech gear that I use, the cameras and all that. I suppose a few of you might be interested in it. I've penciled it in for a possible video in the future. Human, have you looked into... Oh, no, sorry. Do you like sushi and sashimi? Yes. This is the funny thing. From my past serious relationships, and I don't classify dating women for a few months a serious relationship. I term a serious relationship in years, 1+ years. I remember with my first, the thing I'm grateful for that I learned, not just the lessons from her and female nature, but things that I still enjoy. She introduced me to sushi and sashimi. But I didn't like her highfalutin lifestyle and expensive lifestyle. But I did like sushi and sashimi, and I can still enjoy it at a food court by buying a California roll or some sushi. It doesn't cost very much, and it's fairly healthy, relatively healthy. What am I talking about? Yes. What foods don't avocados make better? Ice cream. Oh, you probably could. That'd probably still taste all right. Bourbon. Um, Thoughts on the necessity of confronting? No, done that. How do we create new story and values? I'm 43 and my life is kind of effed. I work hard and am semi successful, but it takes everything out of me. I know what you mean, especially when you go through a long period of time like this. If something, I know with me, or I can only speak for me because I don't want to tell you what to do, or I don't want to give you a fix because it probably might not plug into your life and how you speak to yourself and the things you have in your life. The you know, with me, I recognize that when I didn't like my life in certain ways, but there was a voice saying I don't like it, and I knew that was something honest, but my routines were comfortable. I had a well-paying job and things like that. But I knew that, I said it before, my life was in black and white, and I desperately wanted it to be color again. And you have to kind of, I assessed, okay, what's the worst that can happen if I adjust my life and change things and get rid of things that I can see I don't really need that. And that's a contributing factor to some of the malaise in my life and some of the aspects that I really don't like in my life. If I get rid of them, it will free up and relax my life, and I'll have room to figure out at the very least what I want to do, even if I don't want to. My first one was leaving my job because I knew I could for at least a year. My lifestyle isn't expensive at all. Um, I don't travel really. Um, and so I kind of knew that the only thing stopping me was my security and the fear of that. And so I did that, and I knew rationally that it would allow me time to figure out what I wanted to do. So I would offer that, maybe do that, get rid of a few small things that you can do without, won't really structurally change your life, and you're not going to be on the street. And will let you breathe a little bit better, and then you'll figure out what you want to do. But after that, it takes time. But listening to that voice that's telling you, it feels right. Like you've been doing this for a while. Let go, man. Just try something else. Just a little bit. Adjust this. Get rid of this part. It helped me. Have I done any research on skin hunger? No. Don't even know what it is. Exactly. Alpha dog. Um, Human said women don't like wasting time. I'm assuming you say you're 50 years old. Yes. From personal observation, men's frustration and rage are not a direct consequence of failed relationships, but time wasted. Yes. Men value their time. Women don't really value their time. They say, don't waste my time, but they can they're so transient by the way they act. They show they don't care about time because they throw it away so easily. They're always wanting to be entertained by something new all the time. They want variety. But structurally in life, men value their time more than women. Women value their bodies. So men men feel destroyed by something they've invested so much time into that no longer works. That's why they kind of they drive themselves nuts afterwards, going, "What did I do wrong?" Because they feel responsible for this thing they've invested time. We tinker on things in life. We like building things, and a relationship is no different. So women like wasting time, but they say they don't. They only it looks like they don't like wasting time because they're aware of their biology is speaking to them. The eggs are dying, but by the way they act, they love wasting time because, and they say they don't all like wasting time and they want security, but every way they act, they show the exact opposite. So again, as Paul Proteus said, don't listen to what women say, listen to how they act. Thanks, Kaz. Mastering your mind is the most important thing in life. Perhaps more importantly, I'd say, is having a good relationship with your mind, how you speak to yourself and how you contemplate. Because I have friends where they've got an awful person in up here, always kicking them, and they think that's how they get motivated. You know, the only way I get motivated is when I'm hard on myself and I have an awful superego. To preempt any people asking, I'm drinking tea. Yeah, shut up. The flavor is licorice and peppermint. Thanks, David. Spetsnaz, Hemingway. What's that in response to? I should have our discussion up this week, Spetsnaz. Sorry, last week I was just flat out. And a lot of people have been asking about it. It should be really good. It'll be it was a live Q&A we did where I'll have everyone's questions that we answered, and we didn't get to all of them. They'll be flashing on screen. So it'll be a video coming up in the next week. Also, go check out Spetsnaz's recent video about his observations about the movie Heat. It's brilliant. Paragon. Do you find it funny how the churches of today have no backbone and basically stand for nothing? Most institutions don't. Most of them are very collectivist and they have to accommodate everyone that's supporting and paying for them. Human, are you worried about YouTube banning you like they did to Stefan Molyneux? You spout no hate, speak logic, but present an alternative to the mainstream. Possibly, but what can I do? Stefan, I suppose, was a lot blunter on topics that he was really passionate about, which I respect in him. But that's probably why he was noticed more than I probably am, probably will be. I'm fairly mellow, even if I disagree with something. I don't care. I'm not bothered by too much of what everyone else does unless they impose it upon me. I'm not looking at fixing the world. I think you need to fix yourself. If you can help others do the same, and then that spreads. But I'm not trying to fight the government. I'm not trying to fight the family. I'm not trying to do those big things. But when you take more of the world on your shoulders, you need to be stronger. You probably need to be louder to get your point across, like Stefan probably had to do. I'm sorry to see him go, though. Stuff annoys me, but yeah, what can you do? If they ban you, they ban you. But I'm not going to be afraid. I still want to enjoy doing this stuff. That's the main thing. Why is Red Pill and MGTOW Manosphere so hung up on talking about female behavior when it is time to evolve well beyond such? Is it the biology? I feel many would drop it if laws change. Probably. You'd see a lot of people drop out of the Manosphere. I mean, the PUA's changed, and now they've evolved to something else in the Manosphere, something like pseudo-spiritual, and it's supposedly not about women, but the crux, the main foundation that supports it all is underlying women. So I agree that women should be talked about when you know it's something you're struggling with, but reflectively about you. This is the thing. I don't see a problem with talking about women, but from your perspective. But the majority of the Manosphere talks about women, and they're invisible in the conversation. They talk about trying to work them out, female biology. It's all this stuff we're talking about out here, whether it's women, biology, the government, laws, etc. And you're like this male empty husk that's observing it, all the dangers apophatically, and trying to navigate yourself, rather than going like, no, it's all about me. I'm going to reflect on women. I'm going to reflect on the government. How am I going to live? What am I going to do? What am I not going to do anymore? How am I going to recalibrate my boundaries so they matter so much less? Like I matter more. So there's no boundary. It's kind of like much of the manosphere I see today, which is not what it used to be. I got into making content because it was more introspective. The perspective of content being produced was from here out. And it was constructively solipsistic, or if you want to say like more personal, more, what's another way of putting it? The manosphere used to be more subjectively objective. Now it's all, I don't exist. I'm trying to avoid all these landmines around here. It's kind of like a scared person dodging landmines, where rather than being a still strong person, observing the landmines and kind of doing your best to sort of form a personality that laughs at those things. To just read the Stoics. That's what I glean from them. My wife filed, and I'm ordered to give her half. Oof. It's a lot. I know. I can only imagine. It's enough to retire on. Yeah, it is horrible for me to just flee. I know. I mean, that's why men don't leave, because of how much they'll lose. Women kind of don't leave, I think, because they're kind of lazy and they know they're what being able to recreate that, like get another man, is less given their beauty, because deep down they know they judge each other on their superficiality. They know that men do, but once they can get a man, and especially if they can lock him in, um, there's a lot keeping him there. So yeah, that's amazing. Like that's a lot of why I didn't even find it appealing. The main reason is I didn't want children of my own, but then it's kind of like then there's no point getting married at all. Um, but yeah, imagine that you you have to pay out the amount of money that you could comfortably, even half of it, you could retire on, since you don't have a wife anymore in the structure and the family and whatever. As long as you don't have kids, you probably require half of what you need to pay her to retire as a single guy, if you just got an apartment and you got a car and you just got an average job. It's amazing when you point these things out to society. They still don't understand. Why won't you jump off a cliff without a parachute? Plane would have been a better metaphor. Thanks, Eric. What does make a good woman? You judging her properly. The more men do that, the I think the better women will become over time. Okay. Oh, the questions are coming in thick and fast now. Let me fly through them. Any truth or discernible wisdom to Freud's penis envy theory? Yes, I think by like women are always, because they're kind of so focused on why can't women do this because men do it. Oh, if men don't do this, why can't a woman do it? The amount of that rhetoric would suggest there is penis envy, because they're not talking about the unfairness of something. It's always in references. Well, why can't we be like men and do this? And then when they do it, they don't like it, and they want reality to change. They want the sun to revolve around then after they get what they want. It's kind of like, okay, do this then, but you're responsible for the psychological consequences. We can say and do whatever we want. Society's bending over backwards saying like, yeah, you can do whatever you want. We're not going to shame you. We can't tell you you're fat. You're beautiful, actually. But you can't lie to yourself when the lights go out and you try and go to sleep. If you're neurotic, depressed, and you need to take a medication, then you can't lie to yourself. So there is a bit of truth to that. There's bits of Freud that I agree with, but I think he's overrated by a massive deal. Do you find it funny how the churches today have no back? Yeah. I've answered that one. Do you think they will ever limit the male population? They kind of already do, with high sentences of males, say a Chinese women in the reverse. Have we lost? Yeah, they're already doing it even now during the situation. Like, I'm in lockdown for 6 months. Think about this. Like, you're not dating, you can't go out, you can't meet new people. You kind of go, oh, okay. Like with me, there's no stress, there's no pressure. If I was in the mix of dating in my 20s, there'd be maybe, with my mentality, and especially a guy who's more practical, like a guy in the Manosphere, you think, well, I can't date now. Oh, great. There's a load off my back. I'm off the hook. I'll just play video games because I can't actually do anything else. And so you're fine because you literally can't do something. And if you're logical, you go, I can't stress about it. The more men get used to that and spending more periods of time in lockdown, in isolation, and they just kind of see, you know what, I actually was less stressed. I slept better. Do I really need to work full time now that I was forced not to? It's actually opened my eyes in the same way that when women who are career minded, they have a child, they take some time off for the child, they soon discover the reality of, I don't want to work anymore. I don't value that. I value staying at home. This is what life's about. I think in the same way, these lockdowns will open up a lot of guys' eyes, and yeah, it will reduce the population. It's the result will do that because we're not dating as much. It's scarier for guys. On top of everything before these lockdown, like the manosphere was rising and people were dating less and less. The marriage rate was declining. This is just making it drop off a steeper decline. Could you speak about your past? I don't know anything about your background. I'm not sure exactly. I've spoken about it. I've sprinkled it throughout a few videos. I haven't done one video all about me, an expose. I don't see the point. It's kind of like talking about women to me. It's like when it's relevant to the topic, I'll throw in a tidbit as an empirical example of what I've been through to make it personal, to make it real. But sort of just airing all my dirty laundry. Like most of the women I've had serious relationships with, they were good relationships until they kind of detoured or went south. Otherwise, I wouldn't have, because I have standards by which I'll actually have a serious relationship, even though afterwards I might realize that some of the things I didn't see or they were false. But I I don't really hate any of my ex-girlfriends. Maybe my very first one. If I heard that a bus didn't stop and she was in the way, I wouldn't care too much. But aside from that one, I wish the best for all of them. Hey, Paul, your parents will never apologize. Are you speaking to me? Or is it to the guy before? Yeah, your parents won't. It's look at yourself like an elder. When someone younger tries to give you wisdom, most people find it hard. It's like, what are you trying to tell me what to do? And especially your parents, um, being schooled or listening to their child, they're calibrated without adjustment. They don't have any adjustment dials. They're calibrated. You do what I say. And if you've got a dominating parent, you won't be able to change them. And especially if you know your parents, you know what they're like. If they're not going to change their patterns, especially if they're awful people. Will women ever accept their part in reinforcing or selecting for those same traits they now label as toxic masculinity? They will never accept their part. Women don't, it's very rare. It's like Bigfoot for a woman to actually feel guilt. Guilt is, I did something wrong. Shame is I am something wrong. You can make a woman feel shame. You snowball's chance in hell to make her feel guilty. Women have this mechanism where they believe their own BS. Oh, I didn't cheat on you. Oh, I was lonely. You weren't there enough. Whereas I've talked to a couple of guys in my past where they're in a bad state, and as soon as they tell me, like, yeah, I cheated on my girlfriend, and I'll say, oh, dude, he effed up, It's like, we know what guilt is. Women don't. So they're not going to take responsibility. You look at all these old cat ladies that still can't admit where they went wrong. An older guy will impart wisdom. Like, I will tell guys when I see it to avoid mistakes I made. Women don't mentor young girls. They reinforce their own mistakes. They'll say to them, yeah, men are pigs. They'll raise their daughters to hate men for no reason. Men tend to, you got the outliers who sort of are bitter, but most guys will talk, especially sensible civil guys in the Manosphere, will educate men of what to be aware of, but we won't teach hate. Women will, because they can't feel guilt and they won't want to face, when have you heard a woman mentoring another woman, aside from a mother mentoring sometimes a daughter, because there's more of a, it's more self-referential, like they see a direct reflection, a subconscious one with their daughter. But even then, most of the time they don't want to put down that sort of image of the authority figure. Women love being authority, especially in terms of their kids. They like being in authority over anything smaller than them, which is why they don't like men that much. They like to be in charge. They're not going to, sorry, convoluted answer, but they're not going to reflect because they can't feel guilt. They're not going to mentor the young like men mentor younger guys. They're not wired that way. It's a very rare woman that can or will, because it'll mean saying sorry. That's rare too for a woman. Do you have any favorite songs with red pill lyrics? No. Sorry. I'm 44. Do you think us Generation X's failed the millennials by not being good mentors? I mean, overall, you are doing your part. Well, thank you. Yes, generally, yes. But we're not wholly responsible. But yes. See, I can take responsibility. It's not just for me, for men in general. I can concede, the generality. I can agree to the statement of men like cars, even though I don't personally have a massive affinity for cars. I can really appreciate them, but I might not love cars, but it's a true statement. Anyway, how do you find useful, valuable knowledge, especially when it's not mainstream or it's censored? I couldn't imagine finding MGTOW if I hadn't had a break from my life-consuming careers. Yep. Me too. As I mentioned, I quit my job because I wanted my world to be in color and not black and white anymore. I just kind of knew that's where freedom was. And sometimes we're just too afraid to open the door. We have Stockholm syndrome, like in the Shawshank Redemption. What was that line where Red says, you get institutionalized, where you're so used to your safe routine, you know where freedom is, but you're too afraid of what you're going to do, which is vitally important that you actually have a hobby or something for you, or as Paul Proteus said in one of his old videos, have your own goofy shit. Have a calling, have a hobby. And it's not a glib response, because I know when you're going through pain, you can't actually enjoy your hobby. I know at times when money's not coming in, you can't say, well, I can do whatever I want now. I can make YouTube videos, I can surf the web. The survival instinct comes in, and you won't be able to be free and be relaxed until you can alleviate the low-level Maslow hierarchy of money and paying the bills and food on the table. But get rid of those, have a stability factor in the low level, food, shelter, all that kind of heat, sleep, roof. Everything else, there's very little to be afraid of, gentlemen. Get the base right, and you'll be a lot freer. Cash iron cookware versus stainless steel versus non-stick. Stainless steel. Remember, gentlemen, question marks or emojis bracketing your questions just so I can see them. Do you think we are neutering ourselves and also inadvertently encouraging the dark side of femininity by repressing the natural drive to engage with women because it has become too dangerous? Existentially neutering ourselves, perhaps, but again, it's one of those, think of the species. Okay, are you going to suffer for, and I agree with helping other people, thinking of not just yourself, being kind, thinking of stuff outside yourself, bigger than yourself. But are you going to sacrifice your entire life and suffer under the laws and the way women are, and completely say, I don't matter, I don't deserve any recompense, I don't, if I'll give 80% and suffer and risk children under the laws and the way women are, and if I die, I die. If I suffer, I suffer. I don't care. There's a degree to which you respect yourself too. And the degree to which you respect yourself, knowing with eyes open what the laws and women are like, is the same self-respect that a good woman and a good son or daughter would benefit from being raised by someone like you. So I said in my previous video, you can't be like a left moron saying, well, I'll just do it for the species. I don't matter. I'm lazy. I've got no discipline. I've got no discerning boundaries or philosophy. Who gives a crap? And then all of a sudden, then you have a child and you get married. It's like, now I'm going to flick that light switch. And now I'm going to be a completely different persona. I'm going to be the responsible, intelligent, well, be that person beforehand, because if nothing can stop you getting married, you're going to find the best woman possible given the environment out there by being very discerning and being the best husband and father before you even consider anyone to travel down that path with you. Because afterwards, if you're that person all the time, you're going to raise the best children. You're going to have the best family experience. It's logical. You can't be a moron afterwards and then go, you know what, just wait. If I blindly have children and marry anyone without any standards, afterwards, I promise I'll be Elon Musk in terms of my discipline and character and, ethics and values and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't make sense. So existentially, yeah, but if you're a thinking, conscious person, can you really ignore the responsibility of being a person in your decision making? Because that same person is the same decision maker with a child afterwards. Digital, thank you. When speaking on unpopular truths, do you think the method of delivering is as important as the fact being presented? It is easier for men. It is easier for men versus women. For the first question, yes, doubly yes. How you think, how you speak, how you communicate, I think matters more than the information. And I'm not saying that the information doesn't matter, but how it's delivered, how you communicate matters. Simple fact is that one voice, just by sheer fact of how I speak, my accent, what words in concatenation, one after the other, that I in real time come up with now, that I decide to, and I have little. See, now I'm being stumped. I have little control other than what I've previously taught myself and been interested in terms of how I've read, what language I've imbued, and how seriously I took thinking, speaking, and articulating. So when it comes to this, I can actually try and communicate it well. So that whole word salad that I just said then took a lot of thinking, but once I got on a roll, that was from the benefit of being interested previously in how I speak, what I absorb, how much things matter. You know, I don't just read Ayn Rand or the Stoics and think they're entertaining and put them in my back pocket and never look at them. They're continually processed and being sharpened in my ethics and real life. So how you speak matters a lot, because a lot of the manosphere, I think today, and I want to make a video about this, today, what matters more given the social environment, the old school MGTOW videos, they're still great as a knowledge base, but considering that most of the youth today are plugged into social media and they feel more alone than ever, real-time interaction like this is the thing that'll help men the most. So not just people like me, but if you can actually articulate in real time and process this stuff and find it important, so I can speak to you if I get on a Skype call with you and we get into these topics and you have something to say, like I have something to say from a different upbringing, from a different life experience, different words. I can learn from you, you can learn from me. And then you spread that. Like I talk to you, for instance, say I have a conversation like I just did with Spetsnaz. And then he says something that makes me think, and I never would have had that light bulb if I never spoke to him. And the fact that he could articulate it helps me. Then the next time I have a video, I might throw in a word that gave me that light bulb from a conversation I had with him. So it all expands. So how we speak to each other, how we form our own language is really, really essential. And I think the information that we toss around in our heads while we throw words out, and when we think, they're secondary. We need to be fed by them, but how we do it is more important. Sorry, long answer, but an important one. Thanks, Bob. What would you tell a young incel that believes MGTOW actually forced to go their own way and believe MGTOW is a major cope? By the way, I love your videos. Thanks, man. As Stardust said recently, everything's a cope. Everything you do in life is a coping mechanism, but it depends on how you look at it. I drink to cope with thirst. I sleep to cope with tiredness. All that matters is how you see it. Look, anyone can call themselves any acronym or belong to any group. What matters is whether, when you're in that group, if you're honest with yourself, it's giving you the medicine you need. And in some ways, I think a lot of guys were forced into certain pockets of the manosphere to have a place that might have been away from the ridicule and shame of the world and away from no one to speak to. The reason why I love interacting with you guys and making videos for you guys and making for myself and talking to you guys is that I respect men more than I respect women and the world out there. So the ability to express myself completely without censoring myself or editing is more the appropriate word. When I'm with people that I don't know, or I know they're, your typical gynocentrists, or they're informed, or they're not interested philosophically, they're not deep thinkers, they're just surface level people, I edit myself because I have the ability, but I still want to engage in conversation. So I might observe and glean things and go away in my own mental notebook and say, well, it's not just what I think online with the guys, it's been tested out there, and so said this, and this has made me reflect. So yeah, there's all different kinds of guys that find their way to MGTOW or the Manosphere, and I don't see it bad in any way. A guy who's been divorced finds themselves, and he finds all these light bulbs and clear explanations. The amount of times I hear guys saying, like, if I was so confused and I was so neurotically stressed and depressed because I couldn't figure out why this happened. And then I watched so-and-so's video, and in one line they poetically said blah, 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 and it clicked. Of course, Thank you for articulating what I only felt, but I could never actually see or hear in words. And that gets imprinted. And then when they go forward, it can help them avoid these traps because they've got this imprinted in terms of a safety mechanism that's self-protective. Human, are you in any financial debt? No. I'm fairly minimal. And that's the best freaking sleeping pill, is knowing that the way you live your life, and if you've got a little bit of savings, and if you lost your job for 6 months or a year, something that observe the average pedestrian out there. Most people live paycheck to paycheck. Very few could survive even a couple of months without work. So given the way they are, and society, the government won't let them suffer, save enough money, create enough buffer that you're double or triple their situation. Because if they're not going to let those morons suffer, the pedestrians that are like asleep and they're not interested in this, and they're going to be supported. If you give yourself a buffer that will allow you to sleep, like I'll make myself safe 2 or 3 times in excess. Like I won't just be able to survive for a month. I'll be able to survive for 4 to 6 months. I'll incrementally, drip by drip, save up enough money so I can sleep better later on. That's what I've done. That's why a couple of years ago, I worked a pretty good job that I didn't like my life. But in the background, because I don't have hobbies and pastimes, my life doesn't have routines. I'm not into sailing. I'm the most expensive hobby I have is camera gear. And I stopped buying them as like a collector. I went through a bit of a fetish, but that was only when I had a high paying job and I could throw money away, and I did throw it away. And then when I started to get real with myself and simplify and be more minimal. So no, I'm not in financial debt, and I would suggest any guy do the same. Helps you sleep better at night. Loose leaf tea versus tea bags. Tea bag. I'm a practical guy. I don't love tea. I like tea. If I love tea, I would invest into the forensics and the artisan aspect of it. Trying to get off drinking so much coffee as well. I've noticed that I like the act of drinking a warm drink. So I don't actually crave the taste of coffee. I more crave the experience of having a warm cup of coffee while I work and do things like this. So replace it. There's an analogy for bad relationships and why sometimes you replace something with something else. Also, why I mentioned before, you leave a bad relationship, whether you want it or not, you're going to be left with another one, the one in your head. So be aware that you can replace one thing with another. And some people say, "Oh, well, human, you can't help how you think of something." You can over time when you train yourself. For instance, you might like wine or chocolate, and you say, "I can't help but love it, and I can't say no to it." But you can say no to it first thing in the morning. Most people that love chocolate and wine, they don't have it, or alcohol, they don't have it first thing in the morning, even though they love it. There's a time and place. So you can teach yourself to think about the things you love in a certain way, to be disciplined in the way you love them by that simple fact. So that logically will tell you can change how you think about things. It takes time and effort and practice. I'm not saying it's easy, but you can. What's your morning routine? If I'm feeling flat, I'll journal just to start writing, and I'll just put a few points into my diary to have some things to do. Because when you wake up and you're unmotivated, it's easy to kind of let yourself be lazy and say, "Oh, well, I won't write anything down because, I'll remember it later," when you won't. Chances are your lazy mental state will continue. Works for me anyway. Thanks for subbing, Johnny. Have you ever listened to YouTubers Black Brigade Debrief and Quoth the Raven? No. Sorry, never heard of him. I don't listen to a massive variety. I have my staples that they've proven themselves over the time to consistently have the viewpoints or quality or the things I'm interested in, especially philosophical MGTOW Manosphere content. The guys I tend to listen to over and over again, if and when they do produce content, are guys that I've been listening to for a while and they've shown themselves to be my kind of guy. Any new stuff, I might give it a try. But it's like a novel. If it doesn't catch you in the first couple of pages, then you kind of go, oh, interesting. But do you remember the spearhead? No. Have you? Do you? Thanks, Eric. Should women be embraced in the workforce? HR will get very angry at you if you do that. But in all seriousness, in some ways, yes. And then you judge them on having to meet standards, but as long as the standards are objective. But that doesn't happen though. They're in the workplace. I wouldn't say embrace them, accept them, but judge them like you would men and don't give them concessions. Fight your biology. That's where that's the way they've been able to adjust society, is they know men's biological weakness to women. What did Dave Chappelle say? A women's test in life is material. Men's test in life is a woman. So they know that men are downstream from women, and we're always going to be sympathetic and give them concessions because the buck stops with us. Women can always lean on us. Ancient philosophy versus philosophy in the past 300 years. I like both. That's a female answer if I ever heard one, isn't it? All right, if I have to choose one, I probably lean more towards philosophy in the past 300 years. Paul Proteus. Why does this keep jumping? Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay. Oh, jeez. It updates really quickly. I think that a lot of men think that they are talking about women, but they are actually talking about the environment as they currently have to deal with it. Yes. I've actually said in my videos a few times, Paul, that you've got the easy trolls and women that come on. It's like, hey, you just talk about women. You just talk about women. You know, LOL, you can't get over women, as though they've got you. Like, see, we've got you on the leash. I don't talk about women. I talk about myself. I try and get this through to people. And the more you can talk about yourself in relation to women, and you can actually hear it. For instance, in your videos, Paul, when you did make them, you weren't talking about women. You were talking about your opinion yourself in relation to women. That's what I wish more guys would do when they made content. And I agree. Guys aren't actually talking directly about their women. They're talking about their experiences with women, the environment they're in relation to women. Because men are human doings, they generally do in relation to the world. We act with the world, and women are part of this world we interact with. And it's our most addictive part of the world that we interact with. So knowing how we're going to relate to them ethically in the world and structurally, if we actually jump off that cliff and have a life with them in tandem, it's more incumbent on us to actually process that. So yes, we don't talk about women, we talk about ourselves. And by we, I mean the actual, let me rephrase that. Most guys in the manosphere talk about women. I'd like to see more guys talking about themselves in relation to women if they have to. If I see questions I've answered in the last couple of live streams, guys, I'm not going to sort of waste too much time. It's not because I don't want to answer it. Look, if you super chat me, I will, but you don't need to do it. If I've answered it again, please don't do that. But that's why I'm not ignoring your question. It's just I've answered them before, and I don't want to just repeat it all the time. So like the last couple that people ask me what would I recommend to read or what's my favorite book. I've said it a few times. I might if there's no questions, but that's why I'm not ignoring you. Do you agree with Thinking Ape that most men are invisible to women now due to social media platforms? Yes, but some men would say thankfully so, because they're revealing their nature and how much they care about men. It's becoming more evident. Women are being allowed to expose who they are more honestly. So depending on the man, how he's seeing things, for me, I think it's great in some respects. In some guys that desperately want something from women, it probably doesn't feel like it though. All right, let's get. I thought this was going to be a quick stream. This was just a bonus. Okay, I guess that this time on a Saturday is good for most people. Um, let's see. Remember, if you want a question, bracket it with emoji cons or a lot of symbols so I can see it. Gentlemen, thoughts on where men are trying to get a good woman at? I tend to think most men got the flow of looking in the wrong places, thinking each time at each place she might be here. Yeah, generally, when you're young, it's kind of like she's grabbing my attention and my whole body wants her. Everything feels good. So why would I resist this euphoric feeling that I've never had before that I can't compare to? The benefit of getting older is your prefrontal starts to wrestle and it becomes better at wrestling with your lizard brain and your limbic system. Has dating become too hedonistic and entertainment orientated? Yes. I actually, from what I observe, dating today has just become like a social media entertainment thing. It's not a meaningful personal thing where you're actually trying to get off it. You're trying to pick one and not be on it. People say that, but they're not acting that way. They use the excuse, well, I don't want to waste my time, so I'll go back on social media and online dating. It's like, no, you like social media and online dating. Do you think the lockdowns will result in more self-reliance among people? I hope so. And for some people, yes, it probably will wake them up. I mean, there's a lot of people getting and filing for divorces because they realize they don't actually like being with a person. So there's a lot of personal stuff that's actually good that's coming out of it, but there's pain as well, but maybe necessary pain. It's kind of like a band-aid being ripped off. So considering that everyone was acting like children for a long time, it's kind of forcing people to grow up, a painful initiation process, if you will, if you want to analogize like an old school rite of passage for people, men and women. Women are going through a rite of passage too for the first time in history, probably in certain ways. Ever listen to the Mark Passio Natural Law? No, don't know. Okay, let's keep going. Are Australian bars open or closed due to the... Yeah, they're closed. How much more often do you think women would be physically abusive towards men if they were this bigger, stronger, sex, everything else held constant? That's a brilliant question. We wouldn't have a species. Flat out, I would postulate if women were bigger and stronger, the human race would not be here at all. Look at their judgment, like at all. That's a brilliant question. You should just make a video on that on its own. Question of the day. That was great. Thoughts on how the corporate world has become? Very. Sorry, short answer. I don't know what to say. It's too broad a question, but yeah, look at who's benefited from the current situation the most. Surprise, surprise. It tends to always happen. Okay, let's. I'm flying through looking at anything that catches my eye. What kind of disasters could a society face if socially enforced monogamy were to happen where such wasn't the case? You're not going to enforce it. All they're going to try and do is, if it happens, tax people like me or you that doesn't want to pay into the system more. Like if you're free and clear as a single guy, you get older, your hormones go downhill, you realize the juice isn't worth the squeeze. You know, my life is actually better now. For instance, me, I judge my life based on, I don't want anyone reducing it. If no one adds to my life, I don't want it to go backwards because I'm more aware of my mortality now. I know there's less years ahead of me than behind me. So I value my life that much more. So about the only way is that they start punishing single guys by taxing them more. I don't know. Or in other ways that'll make guys think, well, look, you know, if I do say yes to her, you know, I'll get this benefit, or this part of my life, the government will give this, or this will be easier in terms of bills or utilities or things like that. So in roundabout ways or socially, they might make it more beneficial. So if they paint or market it in a way that, oh, look, it's all the single guys that are neurotic and they're having an emotionally hard time being on their own online in the Manosphere. What does that tell you? Don't go there. So there'll be like little sly psychological ways as well. But I don't think direct. Society's too sophisticated. They can't do what they did, 60, 100 years ago. We're too connected and informed. So the psychological manipulation, I think, is the next level up of how people are being controlled. Could you speak Megadeth versus Metallica? Could you speak on your philosophical relationship towards your job, career, and what boundaries you set for yourself, etc., to make sure you maintain a healthy perspective? Well, I talked about it before. When I left the corporate area, I was earning all right money, free and clear, no debts, no family. I structured my life very sensibly, and I'm glad I did. But I wanted my life to be color. I wanted to live more. I wanted to enjoy my life more. And there's no reason I couldn't, other than I was stuck in my safe routines and there was something in me wanting to be freer. And that's again why the Manosphere spoke to me, freedom. It touched an unconscious part of me, like, yeah, that feels good. There's something about that. And then when I consciously looked at it, it started to articulate answers to me. And then I started to kind of get practical with it because of the practical information and the real base ethics and morals. It would sort of make me really contemplate, not just in entertainment, but just like, no, I can implement this. I can have a better life with this because of the decisions I make and the boundaries and structure I make my life in. So I basically took a year off because I could, not because I'm rich, but because I'm very basic in my life. I'm very minimal. And I don't spend a lot of money. I don't travel. I don't sail. I don't have any rich hobbies. And my favorite food is pizza. So that kind of gives you a picture of how sensible it would be for me to just tuck away 20 or $50 every month or every couple of weeks or whatever. And then when I left my job, I knew it was only fear that was keeping me from doing it, not anything objective in terms of the values I had. So then when I decided to come back into work, I said, like, I want to enjoy life and live my life my way until I feel like I don't anymore. So now I work part-time, 3 days a week, and 4 days a week, I do whatever the F I want, which includes spending time with you guys and producing content. So create the life you want, gentlemen. Create your tribe, search out friends, have the friends you want. If your family's awful, don't be around them. Choose more of your life and don't just be saddled and think you don't have a choice. You already don't have much autonomy and freedom due to your biology and your prefrontal brain really not being in charge and just trying to sort of placate your lizard brain. But the degree to which you can have a will to make decisions and force yourself into paths that you know will be healthy for you, do it. Ah, come on. It just snapped back up. Are you guys enjoying this? Or should I shut up? My question is, how can I self-actualize while having a long-term injury disability? Well, it's unless the injury itself is playing on your mind and is frustrating you, but if all it's doing is forcing you to sit still and you're quite comfortable with it, well, I mean, it's all contemplative, isn't it? I don't know how you can do it. You know your own nature. I suppose do things and put yourself in a position, give yourself space where you know your personality can benefit in. Like, for instance, some people, like, the only way I can read a book is to have my chair, or I can only read in the coffee shop, or I can only read in the morning or at night or whatever. Know what works for you. And if you want to self-actualize or you want to introspect, place yourself in the healthiest way that works for you. That's all I can suggest. What are your favorite cuts of beef? I'm not too discerning. I'm not a big fan of, I like where it's mainly meat. I don't like all the other bits. So that goes for chicken or anything else. I like breast. I'm not a drumstick person with chicken. When it comes to beef, I don't like chops and ribs and things like that. We have to pick at it. I don't like seafood. We have to smash fucking crabs and pick at your food. And it's like, I just want the meat. I don't want to play with my food. So I'm a very practical person. I just like the meat, whatever the meat. So in terms of beef, I like Wagyu beef. It's not me being fancy. I just like the texture of it. But any rump steak, but just a clean cut of meat. And I like it well done, in case you're asking. In your opinion, what is the difference between loneliness and isolation? Loneliness tends to be when you feel awful about it. Isolation is just the physical state. You can be isolated like me. I'm isolated most of the time, especially now, but I don't feel lonely at all. A loneliness when you don't like the isolative, that's not even a word, isolation you're in. That you, basically, you're more gregarious. You don't like being on your own. And maybe it's not as simple as that. It's just that you feel lonely psychologically. So loneliness is more a mental thing. Isolation is a physical state. If you were somehow forced to live in America, where would you live? I don't know, somewhere with mountains and wolves, that kind of environment. Like, geographically, I'm not too great. Um, Idaho, Minnesota, sort of that cold cowboy country, that appeals to me. Colder weather, anywhere with cold and mountains, snow-capped mountains, large open fields. That's the kind of guy I am. Forest too. I like green. I'm not a dry, arid person, which is stupid for someone living in Australia. But my family and friends and people I've grown up with are all here. So that's where I am. And so the weather's not a massive deal breaker. But if there was nothing for me here, I'd move to a colder climate like Greenland, Canada, but not for the politics, but somewhere colder. I really like the cold or spring, autumn environment, but summer is my least favorite. How long have we been going for? An hour and a half. Yeah, almost everything is mental. Learn to control your mind and you will control your life. In theory, yeah, but it's hard. It's kind of like this stuff is like going to the gym. You have to consistently train it, make it strong, and continue to. It's not one of those things that you purchase and you've got it and you feel secure that you know it. Because the natural biological drives you have, women, the world, the way they manipulate you, it's like gravity trying to reassert itself. And it does it quite easily. You have to resist it like an exercise to sort of be self-preserving. That's how I see it. Nothing wrong with keeping it simple. Yes, exactly. I think man operates best when his life is more simple. Do you think society will collapse in our lifetime? I doubt it. I just think it'll adjust and people need to adjust and adapt. I'm not discounting it, but I don't think it'll happen. Okay. I've gotten to the bottom of the questions, I think. Well, maybe this is a good place to leave it. Look, I'll end it in about a minute in case. So please, no more super chats because I felt guilty last time. As soon as I switched it off, someone super chatted me, and because of the delay, I couldn't answer it. Okay, favorite cooking oil. My favorite oil is olive, but you shouldn't cook with it, I've heard, especially virgin olive oil. Produces free radicals. My favorite oil, probably sunflower, although I don't really use it that often. I don't fry that often. I usually bake in the oven. Pardon me. We're all guys here. You're not offended. Have you noticed the phenomena where the elderly tend to be more gloom and doom? I haven't. I think I see them more disappointed and I share their disappointed at the current generation. So I see that because I'm disappointed too, but not. Uh, I think they're more sympathetic. So yeah, maybe you're right. They're more doom and gloom because they feel sorry for the world, especially when they probably reflect on what they fought for, what they went through, and we handed it to these generations and look what they're doing with it. It's almost insulting. Um, have you? No. What's one piece of advice you would give your younger self? Oof. Be more selfish. Do you have physical gold or silver for a rainy day fund? No, I don't. Do you think oppression is a self-inflicted illusion? In some ways, yeah. Like if it happened to you directly in your life or your father or whatever, but holding on to past generations' sort of obvious wrongdoings, it's good to acknowledge it happened, but to carry it, I don't find it constructive. You're not going to get along. Like, especially with some of the stuff going on today, it's like you want things to get better, right? Between races and people. Well, if we keep throwing stones at each other, we're not. But I fully agree with the injustices being that were obviously done to people in the past. But if you keep kind of throwing stones at people today that didn't have anything to do with it, their grandfathers might have. If I'm trying to be better, throwing stones at me is probably going to switch me the other way. It's kind of like the same with women. The women in the last couple of generations are spitting at you as a man, calling you every name under the sun and belittling you, and then saying, why can't we get along? Look, why can't I find a man? Look at the marriage rate is dropping. Oh, it's men's fault. Like, you didn't have anything to do with it. What was your attitude like, sweetheart? Not your, pre-Renaissance great-great-grandmothers, but how have you lived your life? Like, I can see why you're not happy and why men and women don't get along. And I see it as a similar thing between a lot of the sort of stuff going on today between races and religions and things like that. It's like, talk about them, have a live and let live attitude, but a civil one, a discussion where we kind of go, yeah, okay, that happened, this happened, but how can we get along? I think people just, some people's just trollish and worse natures come out, particularly women's. And unfortunately, we're run by them today. Yeah, look, I'll just I'll just end it when I end it. But yeah, don't pay for a super chat anymore because I'll end it in a second. So I don't want to have a super chat question where I feel like I've missed it. So continue asking questions, but at the end, after I log off, if I haven't answered the last few, you'll know that there was a time delay. When was it most difficult to live alone? After a breakup with someone I loved. That's being honest. Every other time, it's freaking amazing. Like, think about it now, right? Unless I've got one of my male friends with me, I'm talking with other guys. I can say whatever I want. I can talk with you guys. You get what I'm saying. I can be me. What better way to live than when you're expressing yourself, like with guys, physically or virtually? So the hardest time was when, I broke up after a woman, like trying to recalibrate yourself after you're empty and then going, oh, there's no one here anymore because I've been scooped out. Is Australia better than US or Canada in terms of gynocentric laws? We're worse. In the last couple of years, I think we're the capital of gynocentrism in the world. Don't move here. If I could turn back the clock, I wish I would have been born in another country. But look, the way of life here is generally good. Everything, the kind of people I have to be subjected to, and the laws and everything, just the kind of, you want to call it clown world, it's very clownish here. All right, I should probably end it soon. Okay. All right. I'm going to end it soon, so stop the questions. Crocodile Dundee or Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin. Anyway, guys, I really enjoyed that. Thanks for dropping in, and we'll do it soon. This is good because I get to answer questions with you guys. It doesn't take any effort. Aside from me having set this up, I hit go live, and basically I end it, and YouTube basically processes it and spits it out. So it's not as polished as I would have liked, because I'm one of those guys that loves to edit audio and video and kind of just really tweak it. In the future, what I'll be doing is I'll be doing chats on Discord maybe once a month, and it'll be like an open chat where it'll be like I'll unmute you when I want to, like, you ask a question like this, and then I'll publish it later on. I'll record it, I'll publish it like a chat, like for instance, how I've done with Spetsnaz in the past. So I'll record a chat on Discord in the near future where you can all come on if you've got a microphone, and I can talk to you like this one-on-one. And at the end of it, I'll publish it. So anyway, guys, great talking to you. I'll talk to you soon. All right, see you later.